Hello, everybody. Welcome to another edition of SacTown Movie Buffs. Once again, I'm Kier, and this is Jason, and we are back with our top 10 films of 1998, Part 2. We've already done our part deuce.
Yeah.
We've already done the first part, so if you haven't had a chance to check out that show, then we highly encourage that you watch it. But this is the part 2, so we'll be doing our number 5 through number 1, and then we'll also have some honorable mentions at the end as well. So, but before we get into it, how's everything going for you, Jason, today?
Good. We talked about this on the last video a little bit, but it's I live in Sacramento, in downtown, so it has been a little intense lately with the protests and the curfew and everything like that. But we're doing all right, and just settling down for another night of curfew, I think. So,
yeah.
How about you?
I where I live at, we don't have the protests and stuff like that in the part of neighborhoods that I live in. But it's kind of weird for me because I'm back to work now, so I started going back on Monday. So it's been a little strange. It's very empty and quiet in the office, so it's almost kind of like, well, I could have just stayed home and did this. You know what I mean? It's very dead. Yeah, I'm on a row where there's literally nobody like even close to me. Like the nearest person, like I can barely even see them. They're so far away. So yeah, it's a weird feeling. I feel a little bit more safe and secure because of that, but it's also kind of weird, a little surreal that we're still working in the middle of all this stuff going on with coronavirus and protests and all this other kind of stuff. We're still trying to do business as usual. So it's a little strange, but we're making it work. So
yeah, it's been quite a year. I'll just put it that way.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. Well, not to segue, but we're going to talk about something hopefully a little bit more fun. So hopefully if you're at home and you're sick of hearing about the coronavirus and sick of hearing about the protests and that sort of stuff. Not that stuff's not important or whatever case may be, but I'm just saying if you want a break from all that, we're going to talk about movies. So hopefully that's something that resonates with you. I think we'll kind of get right into it. So let's get into it, man. Let's start with your number 5 for 1998, sir.
Yes, my number 5 is one we've already talked about a little bit on this show, and that is A Simple Plan. This is a Bag of Money movie. We talked about it in our Bag of Money movie show. But it's about Bill Paxton and Billy Bob Thornton. They play two brothers who find a literal bag of money inside of a crashed airplane. And after some discussion, they decide to keep it. And as is usually the case in these kind of movies, it doesn't go very well. So to me, this is just the definition of a perfect thriller. I think the acting is excellent. The directing is excellent. It's for sure my favorite Sam Raimi movie that isn't an Evil Dead movie, for sure. The music's great, the atmosphere, the dialogue. It's just a really sharp thriller with great performances and suspenseful. It definitely keeps you on the edge of your seat. It's just a great movie. That's my number 5 for 1998 is A Simple Plan.
Cool. Yeah. Conveniently, it's also my number 5 of never. No, but no, I'm just joking. We already had this discussion in a previous show. It's not really a film that I've never necessarily loved. I don't know. I just didn't care for the characters. I thought they were all nasty and just didn't really care for anybody in the film. So it's not one that I love. But we already had this discussion, so I don't want to go into a whole spiel again about why I don't like it because I just don't like the characters. It just didn't do much for me. So sorry.
Disappointed.
Hey man, just giving it to you straight, man. Giving you the facts.
Yeah.
Well, I guess I'll go into my number 5 then.
Yes.
Which is a much better film.
Well, we'll see.
And that film is going to be Out of Sight.
Out
of Sight, Dynamite. So it's one of the year's bests somewhere on here.
I will agree that it is slightly better than A Simple.
So there are a lot of stars in this film. It's got George Clooney, Jennifer Lopez, Ving Rhames is in it. Don Cheadle. There's just a bunch of people in this movie. It stars primarily George Clooney. He's a bank robber. He's in prison. Ving Rhames ends up breaking him out of prison. And during the breakout, Jennifer Lopez plays like a federal agent, and they end up kidnapping her during the breakout of the prison. And they're both stashed in the back of the trunk, and they form some sort of connection. When they get out, they're the two guys, Ving Rhames and George Clooney's character, are supposed to do this heist, and they of course get mixed up with other shady characters that are also looking to do the same heist. And they eventually do let Jennifer Lopez go, but she's also on the trail of these guys as well, looking for him because she knows that he escaped out of prison and is also looking for him, but also potentially is, curious about him as well because they had a really great connection in the car. So it's kind of a cat and mouse kind of game because she's kind of chasing him and that kind of stuff. So it's got some action in it. It's got drama, obviously, and then it's got some comedy and humor in it as well. It's just a really, really fun film. It's one that I've always loved. There's a lot of different characters, a lot of big stars. Everybody in here is really, really good. And like I said, it was kind of back when Jennifer Lopez was still doing a lot of more edgier stuff, back, like I said, with U-Turn and this, and, a lot of the films that, she, when I really started noticing, oh, she's a pretty decent actress. And, I think, I can't wait to see what she's going to do next. And then, it was a bunch of films. Yeah, Manhattan, a bunch of films I didn't really care for. So, but yeah, definitely a great film. I highly recommend it. If it's not a film that you've seen before, I would definitely check this one out. It's just a really, really just fun, gritty film, and just it's shot really well. I like just the view of the whole film as well. It's kind of a grainy look to it also, so it's just a really cool story. Like I said, there's a lot of comedy in it also. But it does have some action, does have some violence. It does have a few, very, very violent scenes and things that happen. Some of it's off camera, but there's a lot of like crazy stuff that happens in it also. But definitely one, if you like action, you like comedy, and you like them kind of blended both, then I definitely suggest you check that one out. Number 5 for me is Out of Sight.
Yeah, I love Out of Sight. Out of Sight is on my list too, a little higher. It's one of my favorite movies for sure. I mean, right now where I sit, on the wall above the computer is an autographed Out of Sight poster that I got framed. That's autographed by George Clooney, Ving Rhames, and Jennifer Lopez. So yeah, I'm a pretty big fan of Out of Sight. Cool. Steven Soderbergh is one of my favorite filmmakers.
Oh yeah, Steven Soderbergh's the director. Sorry, I forgot to mention that.
Yeah. He's made like 1 million movies. I've liked almost all of them.
Yeah, he turns out like 5 a year now. Seems like.
Yeah, how many has he done since he retired? Probably at least 10.
I don't know. Just, but yeah, I know he gets flack nowadays because he shoots a lot of them on an iPhone, so some people don't like that. But,
yeah, whatever. But it's he's made movies that are more like, I guess, topical and everything, like Traffic, which is great also. But I think if I had to pick one favorite, it'd be Out of Sight, which is it's just fun. It's just a fun movie. It's so well made. I love the non-chronological editing that he does throughout the movie. The look of it, like you said, it's got this kind of like warm but grainy, kind of like a lot of red and a lot of blue and everything in there. The performances are great. The chemistry between George Clooney and Jennifer Lopez is just like, that scene in the trunk is just like amazing. And the soundtrack, I mean, I just love everything about it. It's one of my favorites. So yeah, great movie.
Cool.
Great movie.
Cool.
Yeah.
Number 4
for me. Oh, excuse me. Number 4 for me is Rushmore. So yeah, this is Wes Anderson's breakthrough movie. He made one before this called Bottle Rocket, which is also very good. But this is the movie that kind of broke him in the mainstream. And I think probably it's still my favorite of his. I've liked every single movie he's made. I'm not wild about The Life Aquatic, to be honest, but I've pretty much really liked or loved everything else. And I don't hate The Life Aquatic. But Rushmore, I think, is still his best movie. It's his most consistent, satisfying movie, I think. And it stars Jason Schwartzman, who's in a whole lot of his movies, as this kind of prep school kid who is smart, but also kind of a rebel and kind of makes kind of a troublemaker. I'll just put it that way. And he has he finds kind of this bond with Bill Murray's character, who's basically a lot like him, except older. And they both end up falling in love with the teacher at the school. So that's the basic setup, but there's a whole lot more to it. But this is the movie that really establishes Wes Anderson's style. You know, Bottle Rocket had his kind of characters in it, but Rushmore is the first movie that kind of establishes that look, that Wes Anderson look of like the almost geometrically designed widescreen frames that are like perfectly split down the middle, and it's just like diorama like screens. But it's got a great soundtrack, great performances. It's just a terrific movie. I loved it from the very first time I saw it in the theater when I didn't even know who Wes Anderson was or Jason Schwartzman or any of them. And like I said, I've loved every one of his movies pretty much, but this one is the one that's most satisfying to me as the years go on. So that's my number 4, Rushmore.
Cool. Yeah, I like Rushmore. It's not in my top 10 or honorable mentions or anything like that. I haven't seen it in many, many years myself, but I do remember it being funny and liking it overall. But I can't say I'm a huge lover of Wes Anderson films. They're just I always kind of like them for the most part, but I've never loved any of them personally. Not a whole lot of them, anyways. It just, I don't know. His style is it just doesn't do a whole lot for me. But they're always, for the most part, somewhat funny, fun films. But I don't know. For me, they're always kind of like, I don't know. I enjoyed that, but I don't necessarily need to watch that again. So, but yeah, but I like it though. It's a good film.
Yeah, it's a great film. So
it would round out my maybe top 50 of that year. So
wow.
There's a lot of films that came out. There's hundreds of films that come out every year. Top 50 is not bad at all.
Moving on.
Number 4 for me. We've already covered in the first part of the show. Number 4 for me is going to be There's Something About Mary.
Nice.
So yeah, just really great comment. I think it was like your number 10, I believe. First part. Yeah. Something About Mary, very, very funny comedy. One of my favorite comedies of all time. 98 was a great year for comedy in general. There's 2 of my favorite comedies came out that year. So yeah, it was really, really great. Really fun film, just really funny. Like I said, we kind of covered it in our last show, so I'm not going to spend too much time on that one. But like I said, I love everybody in there. Cameron Diaz is great. Ben Stiller is great. All the other supporting characters are really, really good in there. It's just one of those films that you're just laughing all the way through. And I can put it on today and still get tons of laugh, even though I know exactly what's going to happen after seeing it like 20 times probably. I still laugh almost every time I put it on. So just a really great film. Number 4 is going to be There's Something About Mary.
Cool. Yeah. I mean, we already talked about that one. I love Something About Mary. Seeing it opening, like I said in the previous video, seeing it opening night was like a really, really memorable experience because I wasn't expecting all that much from it really, but it was, the whole theater was just I've never heard that much laughter, I think, in a theater, just through the entire thing. So yeah, that's something I'll never forget. Yeah, it's a really good movie. Great movie. Yeah.
Cool. Glad you agree.
Yeah. Sometimes you're right.
I'm always right. Number 3, sir.
Number 3 for me, like the previous one, has already been covered in your first half of the 1998, which is Saving Private Ryan.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, number 3, Saving Private Ryan. Just a terrific movie from beginning to end. There's no real fault in that movie. Like we talked about before, when I was 20, when this came out, I was, Mr. Pretentious film critic, or thought he was anyway. And so I picked on it a little bit for like the intro and the outro being a little too sappy and whatever. And looking back on it now, I think it was the right choice to start and end the movie that way. It's an excellent movie. The battle scenes are like that D-Day sequence in the beginning is, every time I watch it, every time I watch it, it's even better than I remembered it being every time. So yeah, it's just a perfect movie through and through. Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, definitely. It was just a couple spots below. I think mine was like number 6, so not too much further. So I probably liked it. We liked it probably about the same. So there's not too much in between that. But yeah, I love it. That battle scene is amazing. Definitely not only one of the top films that year, one of my favorite war films also.
Oh yeah,
I never ranked war films. Maybe we'll have to do a show on that sometime. But yeah, no, but it would definitely probably be in the top 5 easy for that as well. So, but yeah, really, really great film. So cool.
Yeah,
cool. Number 3 for me is going to be another comedy, which is The Wedding Singer. So, this is again another one of my favorite comedies. Adam Sandler, Drew Barrymore. Obviously, Adam Sandler is the wedding singer. It's set in the '80s, so it's really funny. It's got a lot of just funny clothes and songs and stuff like that. He's a wedding singer. He's not the best singer, obviously, but it's got a lot of great cameos in it. It's just a really just funny film. He is goes through a breakup himself, and then ends up meeting Drew Barrymore's character in the film, and kind of takes a liking to her. Of course, she's engaged to get married, and so it's kind of a love story in that regard. But it's just one of the funniest films. The dialogue's funny, the humor's funny. It's just the clothes, and when people are dressed like Madonna or they're dressed like Michael Jackson. It's just a fun, funny film. And probably one of might be my favorite Adam Sandler's film. I don't know. It's definitely top 2 probably. I'd have to really think about which ones I like better, but it's just a real fun, funny film. So I love it. So that is my number 3. Yeah, number 3, The Wedding Singer. So I was forget with number 1. So The Wedding Singer. So
I love The Wedding Singer. It narrowly missed being in my top 10. It's in the runner-ups, but it's pretty high up in the runner-ups. Yeah, it's just I think that kind of I think Happy Gilmore and The Wedding Singer came out pretty close together. And I just love both of those movies. So and this I love the '80s setting. I know the '80s seem to never really die, and I'm perfectly okay with that. Because right now, I mean, it's still nothing but '80s out there with Stranger Things, and I think the influence of the '80s will be felt forever, and I'm perfectly okay with that. I know some people are not, but I certainly am. So I have both volumes of the soundtrack. It's one of those movies that has so much music in it, like Boogie Nights or Dazed and Confused. That there's they put out one soundtrack and then they put a volume 2 out later because there's so much music in it. And in all 3 of those, I have both volumes of the soundtrack. So it's a super fun movie. Love it. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah. Number 2.
Okay. So just to explain something, on the whole, I didn't think that 1998 was as strong as the other 3 years we've already done. A lot of great movies, but I have much fewer runner-ups. I'll put it that way. But this was by far the hardest time I've ever had deciding what's number 1 and what's number 2. And I went back and forth multiple times. But ultimately, I settled on this as my number 2 choice, which is Out of Sight, which we already talked about.
Cool.
So, and I just want to point out that my cover is better than yours. So, I've got like the old-fashioned poster artwork. So you've got like the generic photoshopped DVD cover, where I've got the I've got the actual poster artwork that it's my copy's signed there, and there by the actors in the movie. So I just want to point that out. So anyway,
guess what? Mine's got a quote from Roger Ebert that says one of the year's best.
Yeah.
Take that.
Mine doesn't need quotes. Okay, it's just so we've already talked all about Out of Sight, but it when I first did my list, it was number 1, but ultimately I swapped it with what's going to be number 1. So number 2, though, for me, just barely, practically a tie, Out of Sight.
Good stuff, man.
Yeah.
Well, I love Out of Sight. We just talked about it, so it's in my top 5. We're kind of on the same page as that as well. So, and like I said, the order of these, I mean, we rank them, but I try not to get too literal with it. You know what I mean? Because it's hard for me to say, well, this movie's better than this one, even though I give them both 5 stars in some cases, especially when they're different ones, like a comedy versus action, whatever case may be. So, but the ranking it does get tough sometimes. So
yeah.
My number 2, it looks like it's on the shrink wrap.
So you watch it often, clearly.
Yeah, I'm watching this every day of the week, man, for sure.
Yeah.
My number 2 is going to be Ronin.
Nice.
Selling the shrink wrap because I upgraded from DVD to Blu-ray, and I just haven't watched it since I upgraded it. Is all.
Yeah,
So.
I should do that. I have it on DVD, but it's the kind of movie that would be good on Blu-ray for sure, I think.
Yeah.
Let me know when you watch it.
What's that?
Let me know when you watch it.
Right. yeah, exactly. Ronan's just a really just good, action movie, starring Robert De Niro. It's got a really great cast. They're basically mercenaries, I guess, if you will. So yeah, they're basically in Russia. I think they're in Russia. Yeah.
I can't remember.
Yeah, I don't know.
I think
it's in Russia. They're like a group of like mercenaries, like on a job to do stuff, and they all have like different skills. Well, one's a wheelman, one's a driver, demolition people. They all can pretty much shoot. They're all decent drivers, but it's just a really just great action movie, man. It's just like so much fun. Just a really good gritty action movie. It's just got a really good gritty feel to it. Like I said, just a lot of little twists and turns, and are there bad guys or the moles within the mercenary group and that kind of stuff. So just a really fun film. I've always enjoyed it, and one that definitely not my favorite Robert De Niro film, but definitely probably in my top 10 of Robert De Niro films as well. So number 2 for me is Ronin.
Cool. Yeah, I really like Ronin a lot. It's another one. It's in my runner-ups. It just didn't quite make it into the top 10 for me. But yeah, I love that movie. It's been a while since I watched it, but I've seen it several times.
Yeah, me too. It's been a few years since I watched it, so that's why I was a little fuzzy on whether they were in Russia. I think they're in Russia, but I'm not 100%. So
I don't know. Like I can't remember, to be honest. But,
yeah.
But I remember
someplace over there.
Yeah. It definitely has a European feel to it, which is what I like. So yeah, when that movie came out, I remember like I went to see it because that was back when I saw like literally every movie that came out pretty much. I wasn't super excited about it. It looked from the trailer, it just looked kind of fairly ordinary action movie. But I really wasn't expecting it to have like this cool European sleek feel to it. Right. And it was very different than any action movie I had seen at that point, as a 20-year. And the car chases were just like astounding.
Yeah, it's got some of the best car chase scenes I've ever seen. I mean, it is, the chase scenes are really, really good. So there's 2 really, really good car chase scenes in there, I think. Yeah,
at least. Yeah, and it's I had never seen anything quite like it at that point in my life. So I think it's a really just a cool movie that's not quite like anything you've seen, I guess. Or, I mean, like maybe what you were expecting.
Right.
It kind of reminds me, now that I think about it, of Atomic Blonde is kind of the same kind of feel to it.
Yeah, European Blonde, kind of. Yeah. I can see that. Yeah,
I haven't thought of it before, but like if there's any like modern contemporary of that, which Atomic Blonde also is a movie that was not exactly. I was expecting like a John Wick knockoff.
Right.
When I went to see Atomic Blonde, and it is kind of a John Wick knockoff, but it's like a really good one. Yeah. Like it's. I think I might even like it a little more than John Wick, to be honest. But yeah.
I don't know about that, but.
anyway, it's that kind of like European feel to the action movie, and I like Ronin a lot.
Cool.
So,
well, we're already on number 1, man.
Number one. Again, like I went back and forth between this and Out of Sight for number 1, but I'm confident in the decision I made, which is my number 1 movie of 1998 is The Truman Show.
Yeah.
So this is easily one of my favorite films of all time. It stars Jim Carrey as a guy who finds out that his entire life is a TV show. So it was very relevant when it came out, and it's still pretty relevant. Maybe even more so in the way that everybody records everything these days. But yeah, I think it's very much a visionary film. Jim Carrey is amazing. This is kind of one of the first times that he really kind of stretched his acting muscles. Before then he was mainly known as, Ace Ventura type characters, Dumb and Dumber. But this was, while it's still utilizing that comedic side of him, it was definitely like a more dramatic approach. And I just love the look of the film. I love the score. I love Ed Harris as kind of kind of a god character, the director of the TV series in the Moon, So I think The special effects are really cool. I think it's a very, very special movie, and it's easily one of my favorite films of all time. So I'm confident saying it's my number one film of 1998, and that's The Truman Show.
Cool. Yeah, I like The Truman Show. It is a really good film. It didn't make my top 10 or my runner-ups, but it's definitely a really cool film. I like it a lot. I even had some issues with it back then. I haven't seen it in many years, but I liked it. It's a good film. It's fun. It's still kind of funny. He's more serious in it, but he's not like completely serious either. It does have some humor in it as well. So I like that about it. It is a really, really neat concept of basically a child that's raised up to think that he is living real life, but he doesn't realize he's on a show. He's being recorded, and it's like the highest rated show, in the world. Basically, everybody watches the Truman Show, and it's like the number one show about this, that all of his people around him are all fake. They're all actors, that kind of stuff. It's really interesting. So I do enjoy that aspect of it. No, really, really good film. I don't fault you for making it number one. It just, like I said, just didn't quite make my top 10 or my runner-ups, but it would be really good. Probably definitely my top 20 for that year. So cool. My number one, in a completely different direction of the Truman Show, a little bit more serious, is actually going to be American History X.
Yep.
So that's my number one. Stars Edward Norton and Edward Furlong, both Edwards. Basically, Edward Norton's character is a white supremacist member, ends up going to prison for murder. While he's in prison, he starts realizing that, maybe white supremacy is not the way to be. He starts seeing little holes and cracks and stuff like that. But when he gets out of prison, he finds out that his little brother, who's played by Edward Furlong, is now also palling around with the white supremacists as well. And that's basically kind of what the story's about. It's a little bit more to it than that, because part of it's a prison film, part of it's current. It does kind of go back and forth through the timeline of how he became a white supremacist, person. What events led to that, in his life, that where he started to change and see things differently and that kind of stuff, with, his father and upbringing and, stuff like that. His, father dies, while he's still a teenager, and, leaves that void for him and that kind of stuff. So it's a really good drama, does have some action in it, but just a really, really good story. I thought it was really interesting the first time I saw it. Clearly not for everybody, because there's a lot of racial things and tensions and stuff like that happens, and there's a lot of violence that happens that's race related as well in the film. So if you're sensitive to that, especially with what's going on right now in current pop culture right now, this might not necessarily be the film to watch if you are on the front lines. And not saying it to be funny, but just seriously, this is definitely might bring up some of that other kind of anguish that you might have, because there's a lot of racial elements that are take part in this film. But other than that, it's really, really good drama, really, really good story, and that's my number one film of 1998, American History X.
Nice. Yeah. I like American History X a lot. It didn't quite make my top 10. It's in the runner-ups, but it's definitely one of the best films of 1998, I would say, for sure. And yeah, you're right. It does say a lot about how hate is taught, the cycles of how all that stuff cycles through people's lives, and that it's taught, like I said.
Right.
Yeah, the performances are really excellent. Edward Norton is great. I think he was nominated for an Oscar. I'm pretty sure. I don't think he won, but he was nominated.
Right.
But yeah, it's a really strong movie. It's not always easy to watch, like you said, for sure. Right. But it is. I think it's an important movie. It's a thought-provoking movie, and good choice.
Cool. Well, I'll run through my 5 runner-ups, and then you can go through, yours.
I don't have as many this time. I just have 9. I don't have 20.
Cool. Well, mine will be pretty quick. Number 15 is Wild Things, which is very not for the kids. It's a very seedy film about. It's got a lot of twists and turns. It's kind of hard to describe, really.
Noir,
Just
I guess.
huh?
Noir.
Yeah, kind of a noir film.
Yeah.
Very hard to describe. Very seedy. There's a lot of bad people in this film, if you will. It's got a lot of different twists and turns. I'm not describing it the best, but it's definitely a really good film. I haven't seen it in a few years. That's why my memory is just a little bit fuzzy on it. But one of the ones that I definitely love from that year. Like I said, the acting's really good in there. It's a very seedy film, definitely not for the kiddies, but a very adult film. There's a lot of sex and violence and that sort of stuff in the film. So definitely one you might want to check out. 14, I'm going up, obviously.
Okay, yeah.
14 is H2O or Halloween. I love the Halloween films. One of my favorite types of horror movies is Halloween. This one's really, really good. Another one where Jamie Lee Curtis is back. In this one, they seem to keep bringing her back.
Alternate timeline to the one.
Yeah,
that came out
they just do whatever. They bring her back, and then they bring her back again, and be like, oh yeah, that other movie that she was in never happened. You know what I mean? So
I love that, honestly.
Yeah, and then they change like whether like he's her that they're in some stories he's her sister, and then some he's not, and that kind of stuff. So it's really. They just do whatever they want with the timeline, but this was a really, really good one. Obviously, this one wasn't my favorite Halloween, but it definitely made the top 15 of that year. 13 is Rush Hour. Pretty much everybody and their grandma's seen that one. Jackie Chan and Chris Tucker, action comedy, obviously. So that one's really good. I'm sorry, yeah, 13. 12 is actually going to be a comedy, high school comedy, which is Can't Hardly Wait. I just enjoy the heck out of that movie. I don't know. I was just think it's funny. I know a lot of people say it's cheesy and that kind of stuff, but I always like it. And it's got everybody and their grandma in it. I was just watching it the other night, and there are so many people, like recognizable faces in that film. I mean, like just everybody's in that film of that era. You know what I mean? Like it's just got so many like faces. You're like, oh, I know that. Oh, that's so and so from so and so. You know what I mean? Like so, it's just a really cool film set. Basically, the day of the graduation. Basically, the main star is in love with this girl. Finds out the day of their high school graduation that she's breaking up with her longtime boyfriend. He had an opportunity to, I think, like freshman year, he had an opportunity to it was her first day of school. He had an opportunity to show her around, and eventually he hesitated, and another boy stood up, and basically they ended up dating the entire high school. So he never got an opportunity to tell her how he felt about her, that he was interested in her. Basically just was in love with her for basically 4 years of high school. She finally breaks up with the guy the day of, I guess, the graduation or something, or he breaks up with her. And so he finds out she's single and she's going to be at this party. So he gets up the courage to go and tell her how he feels. But of course, there's a lot of mishaps with that. And there's a lot of going on with all the other characters in the film. And just a really, really funny, fun film. So great teen comedy film, if you will. Next up is going to be Ants. Animated film. Yeah. I don't always love animated films, but this one was a really good one. It's got some really good battle scenes, a lot of big stars in there as well. I've always loved Ants, so that's number 11 for me. Yeah, that was it. Yeah, that was it. Yeah, that was the one. Yeah, those are my runner-ups.
I forgot about Ants. So I don't know any either. I haven't seen it in a long time, but I remember it came out the same year as A Bug's Life, and Bug's Life was like way more successful, but I thought, and I probably think that Ants is a way better movie. Better.
It was a little more. It was more violent, because the ants in the film, they actually like fight. They have to fight like termites, right?
Yeah.
There's like some really violent scenes in there. I'm like, wow, this is a pretty violent cartoon. You know what I mean? Animated feature. It had a really good story. Woody Allen and Sylvester Stallone, and there's a lot of good.
Too, I think, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, really, really good story. Really, really fun movie. Definitely one to check out.
Yeah.
Those are all my runner-ups.
Cool. I didn't have as many runner-ups this time, so I was able to rank them. And I did them the other way. I did them the other way, though. So this is like 11, 12, 13, 14, like that. So
that's dumb.
Just real quick, this one I want to spotlight because it hurt me to cut this one out of the top 10 because I love this movie. It's called Last Night. Let me see. Let me get
I see it.
The reflection is a little. There we go. That's the best. Last Night. It's a Canadian film. It is. It's basically it's an end of the world movie. So I always like end of the world movies. So the concept of this movie is that they never explain why, which I like, but everybody knows that the world is going to end on this day at midnight. They never explain why. They sort of give hints. Kind of like in The Dead Don't Die, they never really explain why the zombies are coming back. They just give little hints. Like this one, they just give little hints about why the world may be ending it, but everybody knows the world's ending at midnight. And this movie is just about a loosely connected group of people. So it's an ensemble cast, and how everybody would choose to spend their last few hours, their last day, or their last few hours. So, and I mean, it really makes you think, like, what would you do? If you knew beyond a shadow of a doubt, again, they don't explain why, but you just knew that the world was over at midnight. What would you do? Would you spend time with your family? Would you go to some giant rave in the middle of the city? Would you just concentrate on knocking things off your bucket list? Would you rob a bank? What would you do in your last few hours if you knew nothing mattered anymore, really? So I think it's a really interesting movie. There's not a whole lot of stars in it, really, but it's actually one of David Cronenberg's few acting performances. Sarah Polley is in it. But it's a really cool, interesting movie. Really very funny at times, very moving at times. So I definitely want to recommend anybody looking for a movie that they may have not seen last night. Then after that would be Wild Things, which you already talked about, just like a totally sleazy, seedy. I love that it really, I mean, it doesn't even try. I mean, it doesn't even try to pretend like it's a classy anything. It's like it's
a sleazeball. Yeah,
it's a sleazy soap opera.
We're selling it really well.
Yeah, no, I mean if you like B movie sleazy over the top soap opera trash, like if you're a John Waters fan or something like that, because this movie it's not accidentally that way. I mean, it knows it's that way and it leans into it, and that's what.
Oh yeah, oh absolutely, they go full into the sleaze.
Yeah,
sure.
Yeah. So that's what makes it really fun, but it's also like a really good, like crisscrossy noir thriller with like a lot of several
good twists and turns as well. That which is really interesting also.
Right. So I love Wild Things. This one, you're not going to share my enthusiasm for this one, but next would be the X-Files. Yeah. So I'm a big X-Files fan. I know. I watched every season of the show, and this was the first movie. Really, this is the only movie. I think they did. I think just one more later on. I didn't care for that one, but I think this movie is just a very good science fiction movie. I would argue that it's good even if you've never seen the rest of the show, which you would probably not agree with that because you had never seen the show and I showed it to you and it didn't do much for you. But I would have anyway. Because I'm
not huge into sci-fi as much as you are anyway. Right. So it's
I happen to think it's just a very good standalone science fiction movie, but it also plays into the narrative of the show really well. Then next up would be the Wedding Singer, which I know we've already talked about. Just a really, really strong comedy with a great soundtrack. Then Ronin, which we've also already talked about. Just a solid action movie. Cool European feel to it. Next up would be Pi. So this is a movie. It was Darren Aronofsky's first film. The director who made Requiem for a Dream and Black Swan. And this is pretty much as dark and twisted and depressing as his other movies. But yeah, it's about. It's a very hard movie to describe, but I recommend it. So, and then American History X, which we've also already talked about. Another Day in Paradise, which we talked about last time.
Right.
And Halloween H2O, which we've also already talked about.
Cool. Also made my runner-up. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I love this movie. As far as all the alternate Halloween timelines, I think I probably like the one that. Well, I definitely like the one that came out in 2018. I think that's a stronger movie. But yeah. I like the H2O. It's got a very 90s feel to it. It's obviously very Scream influenced. It feels a lot.
It's very Scream influenced for sure. Yeah, it's because it mostly still around a bunch of high school kids and stuff like that. So that one does. Like Jamie Lee Curtis is still the star, but it's mostly about her kid and his friends and that sort of stuff. So
right.
I would agree that 2018 is I think my favorite of whatever. So
Yeah.
they're supposed to be making another one, actually, I think.
Yeah, but that's like a direct. They're actually making 2 more.
Like direct sequels to that one. Yeah.
Yeah, which I'm all for. I'm all for.
Yeah.
I love those.
Oh, I'll be there. I love Halloween. So yeah, for sure.
And then just real quickly, a few that I don't own would be The Faculty. I really like The Faculty, which is kind of again, like a very Scream influenced take on Invasion of the Body Snatchers. And then 3 that you already mentioned, which is Ants, Can't Hardly Wait, and Rush Hour. I don't own any of those, but they're also really good movies. Cool. So
I own most of those, but I just don't. I didn't bring them out, so. Cool. Well, that's a good list, man. Definitely. Definitely. A lot of similarities between the 2 lists. Obviously, either runner-ups or top 10s or different orders or something like that. But our top 10 tastes seem like they're pretty much really really similar for a lot of these years so far. So. Well, I think we'll see if it changes as the years go on. But yeah, definitely for these years, they've been pretty similar. So cool. Yeah. Well, this is fun. Yeah. Well, we'll probably do another movie pairing, and then we'll be back on, I think, to 1999 actually already. So we're moving right along, man. Almost into the 2000s already, man. We're moving. We're moving in groups. Well, cool. Well, we thank you guys once again for watching the show. Hopefully you enjoyed part 2 of our 1998. Let us know your opinions of the films for that year, or if there's anything you felt like we missed or any films that you liked. We'd love to hear about them. And, as always, continue to watch and subscribe to our channel and, hit the bell notification so you are alerted whenever we upload a new video. And we'll get a new video going to you guys real soon. Thanks so much for watching.
Yep. Thank you.